Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. This is episode 27 for March of 2020. I'm your host, Mr. Mario 2011, and in case you do not know, this is a monthly podcast I like to do where sometimes I have a guest, sometimes I don't. I typically alternate between months on that, and I'll just talk about really whatever the hell I want to. Now, this is a podcast where I kind of just talk about anything, so because of that, it is available on a few different places. If you're wanting to join in on the conversation, in terms of comments and such, this is uploaded to my YouTube channel, Mr. Mario 2011, and typically comes out, the last Wednesday of every month. Or if you want to get this in audio fashion, because this is a podcast, of course, you can just look up Mario's Minute on most of your favorite podcasting platforms and apps, and you should be able to find it there. Anyways, this is a month that I do have a guest with me here, so I guess as I always ask to my guest, who the hell are you?
I'm Paul from Retro Gaming Arts.
Well, thank you for coming on, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for even asking and having me. Like that was what's up. Like I'd love to sit here and talk to you about video games and whatnot for an extended period of time.
Well, perfect. That's exactly what this is for. We'll talk about video games, life, whatever the hell we're going to talk about here. I have a few topics here, but we might hit them, we might not. We'll see. So, for anybody who doesn't know about you, Retro Gaming Arts, I guess what would be your spiel about that?
Oh, PlayStation 2, Sony, a lot of like mod work on those systems. I'm just recently realizing this about myself. Like I went and like looked at my own channel and I just like looked at the different types of videos and I was like, wow, Sony. I've never mentioned the Nintendo DS. Just a lot of like mod work related, a lot of soldering. I try to be like really, really informative about like the style and the techniques that I use with soldering and for all sorts of different mods, but primarily a lot of like Sony related stuff.
For sure. Yeah, I know you really pride yourself on having the cable porn all in your systems and such when you're modding them up. Mainly like PS2 mod chips and such from what I've seen.
Yeah, that's a big one. And to be honest, like I've never even said this on my channel, but that's literally a metaphor for me as an individual. And for real, I want what I want to do is I want to take a mod and I want to do it so incredibly well and I want to just perfect it and just get better at it and get better until and just continue because that's what I want to do as like an individual and that's the message that is like underlying in like a lot of like my videos and stuff like that is that no matter what it is that you're doing, whether it be soldering, editing, making music, doesn't matter what it is, like you can always strive and achieve and take it to the next level and do more. And that's the underlying purpose of my entire channel.
Oh yeah, I really respect that. And that's one thing I've noticed with your channel too. You don't necessarily have they're not tutorials per se, but you kind of just have like overviews and such, and then it's kind of typically you talking over. And I always catch those like you're always very inspirational when you're talking and like when you're speaking with a passion about the work that's being displayed on screen, and I can really appreciate that.
That means so much to me that like you notice that. Like, thank you.
Oh, no problem, man.
But yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things, if you truly love what you're doing and what you're producing in the video and such, it's conveyed to your audience. It's obvious that they'll see it and be like, oh yeah, this guy absolutely loves what he's doing and what he's dealing with.
I love self-improvement in any way. I love improvement in any way. You ever see Jay and Silent Bob?
Oh, absolutely.
You're like, wait, whoa, hold on. Like, where did that come from? But like, I'll bring it back. The dude that made all those videos, Kevin Smith. I saw like, I don't know, it was an interview of his after he did this movie called Red State. And this movie Red State had nothing to do with like Jay and Silent Bob and Clerks and Mallrats. And I've been quoting this dude ever since I heard this, and it was the greatest thing I've ever heard. And he goes, well, Red State is so completely different from my Jay and Silent Bob movies, but like if you look at an artist, their first work and their last work should look nothing alike because the true art is their transition and growth as an artist. And I was just like,
I've not seen that interview, but that is great. I absolutely love what Kevin Smith does, and it's been just cool seeing his evolution. So I can see how you and anybody else would really gravitate to that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just have you I guess I should ask this. Have you ever been to the original Quick Stop?
No, but I do live relatively close to there.
Okay. Okay. Wait, you live relatively close and you've never made the trip out there?
Oh, it was probably a couple hours,
Okay. Okay.
but no,
Okay.
I haven't.
I want to go there one day if I'm ever in that, cuz I think it's in New Jersey, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the best social media profile picture I could ever think of.
Absolutely. Yeah, just go into the because I mean the original sign and everything is there, and then I think even the video store is there too. They're closed down from what I know, but you can like peek in there and see all the old stuff that's in there.
That's so cool. I mean, it was like 25 years ago.
Yeah, because I think the first Clerks came out in '95. Does that sound
Something
right?
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25. Yeah, that's mad long ago. It's like a
Yeah.
PS1 game.
Oh man. Yeah, I know I was like when I first gotten into Clerks and Kevin Smith's films and such, I remember just wondering why the hell that film was black and white, but it was really interesting just watching all the stuff there. It was really like I mean, he kind of killed himself over that film because he was working at that quick stop during the day and then he could only film at night. So he would then go home, change, come film at night. Like he maxed out all his credit cards. He filmed in black and white because it was cheaper. And he picked up smoking as well too from that. He went from smoking nothing to being a 2 pack a day smoker up until his heart attack, I want to say a few years ago.
Oh wow, I didn't know that about the heart attack or the smoking, but I did hear about him. Like he had a dream and like nobody would give him any money to make it, so he said, you know what? Screw it, I'm gonna do it myself, and just like took out a bunch of credit cards, maxed them all out. I heard that. That's how I started my business too. You know, like you want to do something, you do it. You'll find a way to do it. There's so many reasons why you like. Everybody always says they can't do something, and there's a million reasons as to why you can't, but there's never a million reasons as to why you can. And that's also like very, very, I'm glad you brought that up about Kevin Smith. That nobody told, when they told me he couldn't do it, he said, forget that. And he did it anyway. He found a way. And I believe that anybody and anybody can find a way to do whatever they want.
Yeah, and it was absolutely risky on his part as well. But I mean, looking at what he's done now, I mean, I think it's definitely paid off tenfold at minimum. But yeah,
Well worth
it's
it.
yeah, he was, and this was in the '90s, of course. So going tens of thousands of dollars into credit card debt of all things was super dangerous. But it worked out well enough for him, I'd say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you were actually. It's funny because you were just mentioning right off the bat PS2, and I've never asked you this, but this was this is one thing I had on here. Like pretty much the only question I was gonna ask about really. Why PS2?
You should see the expression on my face right now. Oh, God. Number one best-selling system of all time. 155 million units sold worldwide. I don't know. What else can I say? It was revolutionary for every single person's first DVD player. Nah, I don't even care. I don't even watch too many movies. I mean, after we just talked about Kevin Smith for a while, but I think it has some of the. I think it's one of the greatest systems ever made. Fully, completely, no questions asked, backwards compatible with the previous system. Backwards compatibility better than any other system has ever done ever. Well, I mean, I guess maybe Game Boy Advance being able to put a Game Boy game in, you know, but like that was also done really well. But it was just so good, and the PS1 library is so excellent. The PS2 library is so good. Just everybody had a PS2. It was everybody had it. Such a great system. So many good games. That backwards compatibility. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that all felt like the standard to me, and it was real cool going from PS1 to PS2 and then PS2 to PS3 was retaining that. And it wasn't until they started taking features out of the PS3 where I was like, wait a minute, this is not normal? Like
Yeah.
yeah, that's where it started going downhill. And then like I like the systems and all that, of course, but then PS4 it's like, oh no, you can't play anything from previous generations.
Yeah, when PS4 came out, and I was like, man, PS4 going to be backwards compatible. PS1, 2, 3, and 4. I was so excited. And then it came out, it was like, nope. But just like, Kevin Smith, PlayStation 4 completely turned that around and obliterated the competition by having the best library of games. Again, so many excellent remakes, so many great games. Games that people have been waiting for their lifetime came out. Like what's the dude who made Shadow of the Colossus? Fumito Ueda?
Yes, yeah, we finally got Last Guardian, finally.
Yeah, dude, that dude, all he wanted to do in life was make 3 games. That was it. He just wanted to make 3 games, and then 17 years later, we get the 3rd one on PS4. You know?
It is. I have a big smile on my face because it is really awesome having all that. We're like, just this generation alone, we're getting all these things people have been asking for. So, of course, Last Guardian, what else was there? Final Fantasy VII Remake here really, really soon. Final Fantasy 13 Versus, although that came out as 15. There's one other... Oh, Kingdom Hearts 3, that as well. So, and these are all games, like, it's up to debate. Some people could be like, they weren't that good. And I'm like, the point is we got them this generation. In one generation.
Dude, they remade Resident Evil 2.
That was an excellent remake.
Like... just the slaughterhouse. The PlayStation is the slaughterhouse. My friends make fun of me. They're like, "You're a Sony fanboy. Show me something Nintendo." I say, "I don't got something Nintendo. I got my Pokemon Red from when I was 8. I got that." But they're like, "You're so biased towards Sony," and I'm like, 155 million units sold, man.
I think in terms of PS4, though, I will say, to be fair, it was really easy for Sony to sweep past the competition because it was competing with the Xbox One, which had just an awful introduction. Microsoft seemed so out of touch. They were selling a less powerful console for more money. So Sony could have done anything and they would have beat out Microsoft this generation, in my opinion.
They made it so much easy. They made it so easy for third-party developers to develop for their system. I think it's something like basically if you want to develop a game for Sony, for like the PS4, Sony's just like, all right, yeah, sure. If you publish it, you make it, you do all that stuff, give us 9%. And I think that's like it.
Yeah, I think I don't know the details on there. I know Xbox was trying to really push that. They've both, to their credit, both companies have definitely gotten more friendly with indie stuff and really trying to push that to the forefront and mainly make it more affordable. Because I know at least, I don't remember what Sony's policy was. I was last generation, I was a 360 person, but I don't know what Sony's policy was. But I remember with the Xbox 360, with any developer, if you had to patch your game, the first one was free, like a drug dealer, and then after that you had to pay just an exorbitant amount of money per patch, which if you're someone like Activision, no big deal. But if you're an indie dev and you're barely breaking even or you're taking a loss on your game, you might not be able to afford to fix your game.
Dude, that Xbox 360 flooded the market. Like,
yes, it did.
That generation, that system was
because
everywhere.
Everybody had like 4 of them because they kept breaking. and I'm not talking about like somebody getting the red ring on their system and sending it back and then, getting it warranty. Like, no, I know people who they were too impatient, so they would go and like their system would red ring and they would just go out and get another one, or they would send their current one back and then they would go and buy a second system the next day and just keep that system even after they got their first one in.
Yeah, planned obsolescence. Well, not in the case of the red ring, that was clearly a mistake. However, it follows the trend of planned obsolescence where, like, let's make a microwave that's only going to last you 2 years, so you have to buy another one because there's no real way to repair it because we engineered it in a way where you can't take it apart. So maybe a microwave is not the best example. Maybe I should be using Apple as a better example. But sure, you still get the gist, and that's how society is trained. Your electronic breaks, throw it away, buy another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Apple one is a real good example where like the bullshit behind it's like when everybody was saying, "Oh, after a year my iPhone is so slow." It's like, nope, you are not imagining that. Apple was throttling your damn phone. And then they try and spin it and they say it's for your safety.
Dude, I've been telling people that Apple's been doing that for years. Nobody believed me. Like all my like real life friends that like aren't into video games, you know what I mean? Like, because I have real life friends, then I have real friends in real life that aren't real life friends because they like video games. I don't know, but I'm sure you feel me. But my real life non video game friends, I've been telling them about Apple forever, and they didn't believe me for years. And then when Apple had to dish out like $500 million because they did do it, oh man, you're never supposed to tell somebody you love "I told you so." But all my friends, I gave them that little "I told you so."
That's well deserved though. That's something you need to tell people. Yeah, and even if they don't believe you, it's like, okay, here's Apple's press document on it. They're the ones who admitted here. And they try and spin it and they say, "Oh, well, it's for your safety because the life of the battery, we don't want it to explode," all that stuff. Yeah.
That's hilarious. The somebody asked me actually recently who's like not super into video games, but they were like, "Why don't you like Apple?" And I was like, I thought about it because I was like, how do I want to answer this in a sentence without going into like a million details. But the sentence I ended up giving my friend was, I don't like Apple because they view their clientele as stupid.
They do. In my opinion, at least, they do.
Right?
Yeah. Just with with that, I know, sorry to cut you off, but I know even back to the battery here, when people they're doing all sorts of stuff to kill, any type of home repair, right to repair and such. And even I know with batteries, they said, oh, well, we don't want people to repair their phones because you see, when you open it, you could damage the battery, you could damage other components, and it could explode. So we're doing this for your safety and locking it down for your safety because we don't want anyone's phones to explode when they're open.
That's basically just being like, don't open it, buy another one.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes, unfortunately, and plenty of people do that.
That their marketing campaigns, I feel like a lot of their commercials are just very, everything's so like mass appeal. Everything just has such a mass appeal, and it's almost like everything, all of them having like just nothing but like white backgrounds. It's like, what's the matter? Why is everything you do have to have a white background and your entire store is bright and white? What's the matter? You think I'm so stupid that if there's a couple colors in there that I'm going to get distracted and I'm not going to be able to pay attention to your product, which is essentially the exact same product that you just recently released, just with an updated camera and a slightly bigger screen and maybe half a gig more of RAM, because that's what Samsung does, the same thing. Everything is just slightly improved to get you to continue buying the phones, which I guess is essentially smart because, hey, Mario, me and you want to just start a phone company and just make phones and then just supply phones to half of the planet? No, you can't just come out of the woodwork and just do that.
Absolutely not. There's no way to do that.
They kind of have a monopoly on the situation, sort of speak. Not essentially a full-fledged monopoly because, there's multiple companies doing it, but there's only a select few companies, just like Sony, Xbox, Nintendo. Who's the third?
You named off three. Yeah, there we go. Well, that would have been Sega, but that was so last millennium, so unfortunately not. I can't, I don't even, like, even just on my end, I'm like, I don't know if we can have a fourth company. Can we? Can we not? I have no idea.
Who could compete? Who could compete?
Yeah, it'd have to be some. I see new consoles trying to come out. I think like the Evercade is one of them, but they are trying to appeal to a certain niche audience, and then it's nothing really super original. It's kind of just, hey, this is a new platform to play these games on, and just kind of something kitschy that you can mess around with. For anyone who doesn't know about the Evercade, it's like kind of a retro cartridge collection type take. So I think it's more geared towards like retro game collectors who want something new to collect for.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, I'm not picking one up, but it looks neat, but I'm just like, no, I've got more than enough games that I'm not playing right now.
Yo, do you remember something coming out like do you remember, like, it was a retro system, not like a brand new system. It was called the CD, like SEEDI, a couple years ago?
Yes, yeah. There were plenty of people making fun of it because they said that their marketing was seedy.
Oh my god. I never really like looked too into it until like literally the other day. But when I heard it coming out, it was like, oh, new system that can play like all your like CDs, and I was like, oh, cool, whatever. I don't care because I have all those systems. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's cool that somebody's making that. And like, apparently it never came to fruition. And this was years ago. So for whatever reason, I don't know. I saw a picture of it somewhere on the internet somehow. So I was like, let me Google this thing. So I Googled it and I saw their Indiegogo page and I just read their Indiegogo. Basically, they said it's an orange pie, which, so I Googled that and it's basically just a Raspberry Pi just with like a little bit beefier specs. And then they had this like, we want to do a limited edition system in like clear color for the people that donated the most on Indiegogo or whatever, something like that. So they posted this model of their CD console and it was clear green. And if you zoomed in on it, you could literally see that inside the shell, it was a disk drive. And then there was like a little like Raspberry Pi. And then if you looked at the back of the system, it was like drum jack, micro USB, HDMI, or drum jack, SD card, HDMI, and then micro USB. And if you like cross-reference that to the orange Pi, it was the orange Pi had it in the same configuration, the same space away. So basically, all these people did was figure out how to launch an ISO from a disk drive and use an emulator on the on an orange Pi, and then change the entire user interface so nothing says orange Pi and it just says CD all over the place. Basically, it's just like a programming job and like a software job, and then manufacturing a shell and a case. And that's why when they're like, it can't do Xbox, it can't do PS2, it can't do Dreamcast, probably because the orange Pi can't emulate those that well. So I don't know. I just thought that was really, really funny, and I forgot what you said that made me... Oh, Evercade.
Yes, yeah. No, I do remember that, and the Indiegogo, for anybody who's wanted to look it up, the Indiegogo did fail, so the system never came to fruition. I remember they built 2 prototypes of it, and they sent one to Metal Jesus Rocks, who did a video kind of previewing it, and I remember that he actually opened it up, and it just looked like... If you go to a store, and you buy like a $30 laptop external DVD ROM drive or DVD burner, and if you just open that up and put it in kind of a fancier looking case and then shove an orange Pi in there, that is all it was. I will say though, like just for some more detail, when you were saying, not Xbox, Dreamcast and such, I wouldn't even think that it's the emulation on there that can't handle it. I think it's just the disk format, because it can handle anything that is a CD-ROM, but, Xbox's book type that needs a Xbox drive to decrypt or a 360 drive to decrypt it, and then same with the Dreamcast, it's not a CD-ROM, it's a GD-ROM, so it was just the drive was physically incapable of detecting those and reading the game data off of them properly. I think they probably could have, not Xbox, but Dreamcast probably could have been emulated to a decent extent, but not off the disc itself. But I remember a lot of people didn't like that, understandably so, because it was just, as you said, it was just, re-image and a slightly customized setup and such on there. And then I think, to my knowledge, I think they were using RetroArch and the cores on there, and the RetroArch team was really upset because they were actually contacted in advance by CD, if I remember correctly. They were contacted in advance, and RetroArch had specifically said, like the LibRetro, they specifically said, we do not want you to use our cores on your commercial product. And CD said, okay, you know what? We respect that. And then a few weeks later, they said, you know what? Even though you told us no, we're going to do this anyways because we believe that what you're saying goes against what you're trying to do with open source and such. So if you disagree with us, you can sue us.
Damn.
Yeah, but that, of course, didn't happen. And then it's all good, though. No suing happened. Nothing occurred with any type of lawyers or anything. Nothing happened in the legal system. And then the disk drive system never came to fruition.
So, I just pulled up that Metal Jesus video and I watched it and I have it paused right where he took it apart. Mm-hmm. And so, one, I feel like an idiot because I spent like I spent like 20 minutes reading about this thing, and then like I figured out what it was, and I felt like really proud of myself. And now I'm watching this video, and then 3 minutes in, Metal Jesus just basically is just like, boop, here it is. But what I really like about seeing it in his video is they use like extender cables. Like they did, it looks like the cables are like Velcroed down on the inside. It looks like this is like something I would do if I was feeling lazy. You know what I mean? You know? I guess, okay, it's a prototype, whatever.
That's the excuse they can use. Yeah, it's a prototype. And again, to my knowledge, I think there was only 2 that were made. But anybody can make this. It's a disk drive with an orange pie.
Yeah. And, like, why would you even want to? You just, I don't know. I guess it's kind of cool.
It was neat. I thought it was cool, but at the same time, I was like, oh, this is like $100 that I don't need to spend. It wasn't cheap, from what I recall.
Now, if they like actually like figured out and like made some sort of like, if it wasn't an orange pie or raspberry Pi, and if it was like a piece of hardware that they made, it would be a lot cooler.
There is one other system that's trying to do that, and the name is escaping me right now. It's not
Alpha Omega. It's the Alpha Omega. It's the
Alpha Omega. It's not that.
It's not that, but it's something like that.
Yeah.
It's like the Orange something? Mega.
Yeah, Polymega. That's it.
Polymega.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just like, we're getting there. Yeah, it's Polymega system that's coming out for a few $100, and it's supposed to be the real deal. I know Modern Vintage Gamer, friend of the show, he was really railing it at first, but apparently, like, it is the real deal. Prototypes are working fine. He even last E3, E3 2019, he went out there, he met up with Polymega, and he tried some games on there that are known to be problematic, and they seem to work just fine.
Oh.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't want any of these projects to fail if there's something that's reputable and cool and really going to push things forward. I think it should come out and do a good job if that's what the goal is to be. But we'll still, I'm kind of still holding my breath just to see how final hardware is going to handle.
What I like is there's so many options to play all of these games now, which is like basically that's the whole purpose of modding consoles is to enhance and preserve so that you can play these games later down the road when, you know, technology fails or whatever.
Yeah. Agreed.
So just creating new hardware to play them also works.
Yeah. I love seeing what many places are when many people are doing with FPGA and such like that. I haven't touched this yet, but I really need to get one of those DE10 Nanos and build myself a Mister and just deck it out with all the add-ons and then use as many cores as I can. But have you looked into that project at all?
The only aspect I looked into it was because I wanted to see if somebody made a Killer Instinct 2 core for it, and I would get it, and it would basically be like a dedicated Killer Instinct system. That's what I want.
Sure.
And that's the extent of me looking into it.
All right. That's I'm sure, I don't know if there's any Killer Instinct cores out there. I'm sure there would be one in the future if there's not one now. But for anybody that doesn't know, I think everybody knows what a RetroPie setup is at this point, and that's all using software emulation. And this is, I guess, for lack of better terms, hardware emulation, because this utilizes a ton of cores that utilize FPGA hardware to emulate the original hardware as best as they could, which is going to be leagues above what you can get from, you know, software cores and such from something such as, you know, the Raspberry or the RetroPie project. And there's absolutely nothing wrong if you want to build RetroPie and play your games through there. But if you're wanting something better, more fleshed out, more accuracy and all that stuff, Mister is absolutely the way to go. It is more expensive, but it's really impressive what the project has done, and they're always adding more improvements. They're always adding new cores. There's so much to it that's really awesome.
Yeah, like you said, it's a much more accurate emulation to the point where it's almost like a simulation of the original hardware.
Absolutely, because it's really just rewriting I guess for lack of better terms, it's rewriting the original hardware to work on a new chipset and new hardware and such. So again, that's where it gets, that hardware emulation term. I know some people might even still be iffy calling it emulation. That's what I'm calling it, though. I'm calling it hardware emulation versus software emulation.
Yeah, it makes total perfect sense.
Well, that's good.
So I've been on a huge Vita and PSP kick.
Yeah, you were
lately.
telling me about that.
I haven't really made too many videos about it, but like me personally, like I've been playing on the Vita. And just to give you a shout out, every single time I've ever hacked a Vita, I used one of your tutorials on your channel to get me there.
Oh, well, thanks for the shout out. I appreciate it. I'm glad they help out. I'm glad they can still help out to some extent.
Dude, no, it's beyond help out. It's like yours are the most coherent. They're the most coherent and informational and helpful, to the point where, like, if you do this, you may potentially have this error come up. A way to get around that error is by doing this or this. And if that error doesn't come up, do this. You know what I'm saying? Like yours are good. Like everywhere else, like you try to do it and like you always run into issues. You know what I mean? For like the first time.
Yeah.
Like when a hack first gets released, like I always go to you to like do it. And then I end up, obviously doing it like 700 times or whatever. And then like I got a little bit memorized. But the first couple times I'm always watching you. All right, that was a side note. Vita. Back to the Vita.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it. But yeah, what's going on with you and the Vita?
Have you found that? So the Vita, in my opinion, is such a great emulation for. Well, it's not even emulation for PS1 and PSP.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's so good to play those systems, but if you go and you play like Super Nintendo on the Vita, it's nowhere near as good as, let's say, if you were to emulate Super Nintendo on a PSP.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my theory is basically that because when they made the PSP and they all, like, that thing got hacked, everybody wrote the emulators for it. All those emulators were so good for the PSP, but then when they went to the Vita, basically the Vita that's emulating the PSP is now emulating the Super Nintendo.
So you're right to some extent there. I guess I'll try and correct it as best as I can. So the emulators that are on PSP, a lot of them are rock solid. You're not wrong on that. One of the things is we always, to some extent, we always had access to the PSP emulator. We were always able to like peek in there through exploits from PSP games that you could buy on the PlayStation store. And you could either just load up Homebrew or you could access the whole damn ePSP. So for a while, there really wasn't any proper native Vita Homebrew. Now there is plenty of proper native Vita Homebrew, but the problem is at this point, we don't have proper GPU acceleration to utilize on emulators on Vita native Homebrew. And it's been like that for a surprisingly long time. I think there's still even a paid bounty out there on one of those bounty sites where if you're able to get it and open source it and explain it, it would help the community and you'll make some money in the way. But that's the big thing that's holding those native homebrew apps back. There are homebrew games that are there. There are, and it's actually, it's not even really for the games. It's more like the emulation cores, like what you'll see in RetroArch and such on there, which is what's really holding that back. So once people are able to make headway on there, you'll have a lot better old emulation on the Vita without having to boot into the PSP side of it, because all of a sudden you'll have more resources available from the Vita natively as opposed to accessing PSP only resources on a Vita.
Yeah, when you're playing Super Nintendo on the PSP, that whole entire PSP, you're using all of the resources of the system to emulate that Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and then when you're running a Super Nintendo emulator on the PSP emulator on the Vita, you'll still get this. You'll get the same performance as you would on a native PSP, but the downside of that is you're only going to max out what the PSP can max out with.
So I don't mind the way I got it set up for myself right now. Is I turned my PSP into a full, just nothing but retro, just all the retro emulator, and then I got PS1, PSP, and then Vita games for my Vita and my PS TV, and I'm so happy with that setup. I don't even use my hacked PS3, which has everything and does all of them very, very, very well.
Yeah, I love the. That's really cool to hear too. But I think with the Vita, one of the more mind blowing things is because with the PSP, there was Sony had their own proprietary like memory stick duo format on there, and then plenty of other companies like SanDisk and others had cloned it, for lack of a better term. And now you can just get memory stick duo to micro SD adapters and just go that way, and that's the best way to do it in my opinion at this point, as long as your adapter doesn't break. But then the Vita was also held back by really expensive proprietary locked down storage, which I understand why Sony would do that. They don't want it hacked up again like the PSP was right from the beginning. And it worked for a few years, but I just love you. I'm assuming you have the SD to Vita set up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like anybody who has a hacked Vita should have that, or a hacked PSTV. And I just love that the community went in and said, we could just use the Vita game card port and create an adapter for this and then write a driver so that we can just replace this completely using a micro SD card through the game card port. And that worked just fine. And at this point, once that really came out and everything was taking off, to me, I saw the Vita as a worthy successor that could be called that could truly be called the PSP2.
Dude, if you you know how like for the PS3 when you're hacking it, you get the psupdat.pup file?
Yeah.
When you update the PS Vita's firmware, like if you're like, just downloaded 3.73 from like the official website and just like loaded it onto it, it's called PSP2 updat.pup.
Yup, that made me laugh so much the first time I saw it. I was like, no, this is I remember I saw it, I was like, this is literally the PSP2. Wow, that just confirms it.
Dude, one time, so this is the weirdest, craziest, stupidest story, but I don't know. So basically, a really long time ago, I was trying so desperately to get like the most custom theme on a PSP. And I mean like one of the themes where they completely change every aspect of it, not just like the icons. And I ended up having to do so many different things because I found a really, really old theme that I wanted. And it was so custom, but it didn't work with any of the new updates. So in order to, I had to like download a program where it was like all these like unpacking things, and it was a whole rabbit hole that took me a couple weeks to figure out how to get this stupid theme to run on my PSP. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it was unpacking a lot of these folders that had been created within the theme, and then I had to like take a new theme, unpack the new theme, pull a specific file out of it, put that into like the old theme, and then pack it back up, and then download all these different programs. And on I forget which program it was, because this was like a year and a half ago, but it was on one of the programs that somebody made for making themes for the PSP.
Was it an all Japanese program?
I don't remember.
Okay. I just remember back in the day I had some friends who were trying to make PSP themes, and they had to do it in all Japanese programs with like English translations on the side.
Oh God.
Yeah.
There was when I unpacked one of these files, I found there's a picture just left in it that had nothing to do with anything, and I felt like this is the dude that like wrote this code and this program. He packed this little picture in there, almost like a signature, in case somebody else ever like went through his stuff and unpacked it. Like I don't know. I just sent it to you right now. The little picture I found inside of a
I think that's Dark
PSP
Alex
file.
Yeah.
You're from Tekken, right? I don't
Oh
know.
no, you're right, you're right. Yeah, no, I've seen this photo from Dark Alex, like the person who's making the firmwares and such. I think he's used this before. I don't know if this is directly from Tekken though.
I don't know where it's from. Looks like a manga series or something like that. But I just thought it was so cool that it was found like I found it inside some PSP file. That some dude, and it was tucked away. It was a pain in the ass to open that folder or to open that file. So it wasn't really intended for anybody to be seen,
You,
except maybe like a few other people. So
you
I
know,
thought that was cool.
I will say this real quick. My first guess was actually right. If you right click that, like the photo you just sent me, like if you're using Chrome and you right click it and you search Google for that image, everything that comes up is Dark Alex. So that was indeed Dark Alex's icon.
No way. So he
Yeah.
probably wrote one of the programs.
He might have, or it might have just been, a reference to him. It was more than likely him, or because I don't know if anybody would be paying homage to him directly there. But yeah, he is I mean, he's definitely been one of the biggest, homebrew modding inspirations. That dude wrote countless firmwares for the PSP.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's something where I got it out of.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my god, that was great.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember like sending all my friends I immediately like sent it. I was like, yo, I found this little picture inside this PSP program. Check this out. Dude left his signature.
Did anybody pick up that was Dark Alex?
No, because I was showing like my like real life friends that
Oh, okay. I'm a little disappointed then. Damn. Oh man.
yeah, man. I love. So I guess all of this answers your question as to why PS2.
Yeah. No, that works out. We've been everywhere. In that. One thing I actually wanted to know, even just hopping back to the PS2 for a bit, were you modding PS2s back in the day, or is this something that you started doing in the past few years?
No, I only started modding like 3 years ago, 4
Okay.
years ago, 5 years ago, somewhere around
All
there.
right.
I don't
All
recently.
right, gotcha. Because I mean, the thing that amazes me with the PS2 with installing mod chips is like, it seemed like, at least not where like I was living, but it seemed like online and especially in other countries, there were so many people back in the heyday that, so many installers that were available for doing PS2 mod chip installs. And then you get in there and it's like, what the hell? This is not a common skill set. This is, first of all, I mean, it's soldering all these components, but then it's a difficult installation, a lot more difficult than like compared to the PS1 or many other console mods out there. So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, how the hell were there so many people worldwide who were modding these as a paid business and service successfully?
Dude, right?
Yeah.
The thing that actually, when you asked me why PS2, I think this is the actual answer that you were probably looking for, but I just had to wait for it to come out organically. The thing that attracted me to the PS2 the most was its difficulty level. It was so far above my skill set and my abilities that I wanted to do it.
I got you.
And one of the first mods that I was basically, this was when I like really first started. One of the first mods I ever wanted to do was I wanted to get a PSP 2000, get the component cables for it, plug it into my TV, and then harder solder a PS2 controller into the PSP. So basically, I just made a consoleized PSP.
Yeah.
That was one of the.
That'd be cool.
That was one of the, yeah, but I opened that PSP up and was like, yeah, no way, I'm ever gonna one figure this out, two be able to solder this, and I was like, this is way over my head. And I hated that. Like, I hated that. Being like, here's something that would be so awesome and so much fun, but I can't do it because I'm not good enough. You know what I mean? So I was basically like, all right, well, let's make sure that never happens again. What's the hardest mod out there to do? Let's go and do that 1,000 times. And then I'll never have to worry about modding a PS2 controller into a PSP, which coincidentally I've never done, but
And that's one thing for anybody listening who's never looked at a PS2 mod chip install. Just seriously, go on to Google right now, look up PS2 mod chip install, and just look at some of the work there that you'll see. And I know you'll probably find photos that Paul here has of installs as well. But I know prior, one of the more infamous I guess infamous kind of has a bad ring to it. One more famous modders was named Jin, Jinn.
Oh,
And
yo,
yeah,
Jen.
but he had gone on record at one point and said, yeah, the PS2 mod chip is pretty much the hardest mod out there, and if you can do these mod chip installs successfully and master a PS2 mod chip install, you can do any mod.
That's yeah, very, 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 very well said. And I feel this also just goes for life too. If you're like learning a new skill, like master the hard part. I don't know, but I skateboarded for like 20 years, and like pop shove it's like a really like simple basic trick. Like to this day, I can't do them because my whole life I would just practice like hard flips and like nollie 360 flips and like really hard, like a lot harder tricks. And then, obviously by now I forgot all the easy ones, but that was my idea, my concept behind skateboarding was let me struggle with the hard tricks so all the other easier tricks become easier later on.
Sure. I guess the thing that I would just caution on, I guess this is more my philosophy, I would disagree with, is like the only thing is with that, you'll mess up a lot along the way at times, but it will also, I believe in building a solid foundation. So, like, for example, when I really was getting into soldering, like, I fucked up, a PS1 mod chip install. And then, later on, I did revisit that, and I was able to get in there after struggling with a few other systems. I was able to get it installed. And then, like, when I did the Xbox 360, the first hard mod I did was the JTAG exploit, because I had JTAGable system, and I was like, well, I have one opportunity to do this, but it's only like 3 components that I need to solder. And then I started kind of working my way up, and then I eventually got to the PS2, of course. But having that foundation was super important for me, at least. But everyone learns differently as well too.
That is true. I feel a balance between, if you balance what you said and what I said in the middle, that would be the greatest thing ever. Is when you feel comfortable, tackle the next level up, the next difficulty up. But you can't tackle that until, for instance, you have to mod 10 PS1s before you can try one PS2. You're absolutely correct.
I would say, yeah, that would be accurate.
Yeah, like something like that. You know what I mean? Like. You got to recap a Game Gear before you can go and recap a Sega CD, because Sega CD got like 52 capacitors in it or something ridiculous.
Yeah, God loves Sega for using those bad those bad capacitors on their systems.
Oh, the ones that smell like fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're brutal, man.
God.
They are brutal, but Game Gear was such like a great entry level for so many people that I know that do mods. I ask a lot of friends of mine, like, yo, what got you into modding? Oh, like recapping Game Gears. What got you into modding? Was it that RGH you were just talking about? Was that like your first one, or was that like what got you into it?
Are we talking hard mod specifically, or just modding overall?
Both. I want to know for both.
Sure. I want to say with hard mods, because I guess I'll go backwards on this. With hard mods, it was definitely the Xbox 360, where it was more, I was doing disk drive flashing on there. And then I think I did some other, started kind of dipping my toe in there, where, like, for example, flashing some disk drives. Have you ever heard of the Kamikaze exploit for the 360?
Heard of, yes. Have any idea of what it is? No. Sounds vaguely familiar. Somebody told me about it once upon a time, and I don't remember what it is.
Right on. So this is for you, and then like for anybody who might be listening who doesn't know about this, but on one of the drives for the Xbox 360, this is one of the harder drive mods on there. What you need to do, you need to unlock the disk drive itself to flash the firmware to it. So you hook it up, you get your program up and running, which would be Jungle Flasher typically, and then Jungle Flasher starts sending it command to reset the status of the drive to unlock it. And it can only successfully unlock your drive when there is a wire that is that is broken. This wire is inside a really small chip, and what you need to do while your drive is hooked up and powered and you're sending this data to it, this signal constantly, you need to go into the chip and sever that wire. So you can use an X-Acto knife to drill in there. You can use a drill bit to drill in there. You can use a soldering iron. The soldering iron is my favorite, but you need to find the exact point where this wire is embedded in the chip, and then go in while it's still up and running, and you need to make it just far enough so that the chip is not damaged, the drive is still functional, but you have successfully broken the protection on there to keep the firmware locked. And then at that point, you can unlock it, relock it, and do all that other fun stuff. And that's, I think, like some of the farthest stuff I had gotten on there. But it was, I'd had a buddy's dad who installed a RGH for me, where I did all the software side, but I couldn't solder because I wasn't successful with the PS1. Like, I did not have any hope for what I was doing. So I had him do all the RGH stuff, like the hard mod for me. And that was able to work for a bit. It busted at one point, but I was just wanting to get back into soldering and try it again because I had befriended someone who he was doing the mod work for me, but I was spending a decent amount, the labor was always free. He would just charge me shipping and parts, but it was just, I had a bunch of 360s and I would send one to him, he would install it, send it back, and plus I wanted to do it on my own too. So it was more just like the JTAG and RGH that got me into soldering specifically, and I guess PS1 mod chips. And then more for just modding itself. The canceled game it was supposed to come out like October 31st, 1998. The canceled game on PS1, Thrill
Kill.
Yes.
I said it at the same time as you.
I found out about this game, thought it was amazing, had to figure out a way to play it. At the time, emulators were not good. I didn't know what the fuck a mod chip was. I didn't know how to solder. I didn't know anybody who could solder. And I found out about boot discs. So through a series of events, I was able to get a copy of Thrill Kill from someone. I was able to order a boot disc, and I was playing Thrill Kill really shittily on my PS1. And that's Thrill Kill is the reason why I got into modding, because I wanted to figure out a way to play that game.
Dude, I can't believe, like before you even said Thrill Kill, I was just like, as soon as you said cancel game, I was like, he's about to say Thrill Kill.
It's one of the most well-known canceled games out there.
Dude, I got to play that game in 1999 or 2000, very soon after it was canceled. Me and my buddy Nick, I remember we were both 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. And we heard about it from the magazines. We knew about Thrill Kill. We seen it on the internet one time or something, a picture of it or something like that. But it never came out, so we didn't know what happened. And I remember him being like, "Yo, dude, my mom's going to her boyfriend's house. You gotta come with me." And I was like, "Why? Let's just stay home and either skateboard or play video games." He's like, "Nah, dude, you gotta come with me to this dude's house." I was like, "Why?" And Nick goes, "He's got Thrill Kill." I was like, "No way." I was like, You're lying. I don't believe you. Yo, I went with him. I went with his mom to this dude's house. And we went downstairs to the basement, and the dude just kind of set us up to play video games and leave us alone. And I remember his basement. He had one of those big screen projector TVs. And then he had an entertainment system built around it with shelves on both sides.
Sure.
And it was so audiophile, this guy, because it was just so much audio equipment, a million receivers just everywhere, audio equipment and computers packed into the corner. And I remember there was 4 PS1s around that TV, and I was like, why does this dude have 4? Why has he got 4 PS1s? Looking back, my assumption is one was to play modded games, one was probably to play Japanese games, one was to play, I don't know, regular games, and who knows?
Also,
you know what I mean?
You know better than I. Once you get into modding and you get bitten with that bug, the systems just start to grow. It's you go from 1 PS3 to 20.
Okay, actually, that's probably more so what it was.
Okay.
That you're probably right as to why he had 4. That's what it was. Yeah.
And I guarantee you, he rationalized all of them.
Oh, absolutely. I rationalize my 7 PS2s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but we ended up playing Thrill Kill, and I couldn't believe it. Obviously, the dude downloaded an ISO, had modded his PS1, and then burnt the ISO to the disc, because that game got leaked on the internet like right after it was canceled because the game was done, and then it got repurposed as what, Wu-Tang Shaolin style.
Yeah, Wu-Tang Shaolin style, X-Men Mutant Academy 1 and 2, and Rock'em Sock'em Robots of all games. But the closest one to it that we can officially purchase and play is Wu-Tang.
Oh, I didn't know that about X-Men Mutant Academy or Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah, because the engine was actually, so fun fact, the engine for Thrill Kill was built from the ground up specifically for Thrill Kill, and the game was finished, but it was canceled. So actually, for a hot minute, the developers, and mainly Activision, they were shopping it around to licenses and companies and such, because they said, hey, we want to make a fighting game using your license, but we have a fighting game engine in-house created, all ready to go. Here's Thrill Kill. This isn't going to be the exact same game, but your game would be using this engine. It would be built upon this engine. So they were literally using Thrill Kill as a tech demo after it was canceled.
That's incredibly interesting. That was awesome. I did not know that. That was so awesome. I made all my friends play it.
Did they like it, or did they once the allure wears off, like, I love Thrill Kill, don't get me wrong, and it will always hold a special place in my heart, but I'm like, the game is okay, it's not that good.
Yeah, exactly what you said. It's like the coolest thing, like, because you have you got a lot of gamer friends that like games, but like not all of them are into like modding, where you can like do all this extra stuff. Some of your friends are into modding. You know what I mean? Some of your friends are in the know. Some of your friends aren't in the know. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different classifications of gamers. So if I invite somebody over who's like, all they do is like play like Call of Duty for PS4, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, hey, check out this canceled PS1 game. Actually, never mind. Person who just plays Call of Duty for PS4 wouldn't be so shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you get what I'm saying. Like, you get to show it to different types of people, and give them the shock value when like a dominatrix kicks off like a I don't even know what the mammoth kind of animal he is.
His name is Mammoth. Yeah.
Yeah, the mammoth. There you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know, shock value. It's cool. Like, there's like a lot of like really silly games out there that it's just so fun to like, when people come over, just pop those in and then be like, check out this absolutely absurdly ridiculous game.
Yeah, agreed.
And Thrill Kill is the king of games like that.
If you want another absurdly ridiculous PS1 game that's a lot more innocent, but one that's canceled and might make for some good times, have you ever played Torque?
Nope.
It's TORC. It's actually really fun. I recommend you check it out, as well as anybody else who listens. But you play as a two-headed ogre in a wheel-type contraption, and you go around the countryside in all these levels and destroy all these buildings and villages. And I don't really know why it was canceled, but it's so fun.
Oh, man.
It's just that weird originality that I feel like we'll never get back from the PS1 and 2 era.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like everything's trying to be a little too realistic at times now.
Yeah, but hey, right now, like, remaking these PS1 classics is like the smartest thing. Like, that needs to just continue, not only for like our generation, but also for the younger generation as well. Mm-hmm. Because those games were so good that I feel that if they had a modernized look to them, anybody of any age will enjoy them, or younger. Dude, you know.
Final Fantasy VII, for example, I know everybody's tired of hearing about it, talking about it, seems like at times, because it is super overhyped, but I replayed it recently from start to finish. The game, the original one, still holds up. It has me even more excited for the remake. One of my younger brothers, he's been waiting over half his life for Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I started him young. I taught him, I introduced him to Spyro and Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and so they knew about the story, the lore, the characters. They tried playing the games. They thought they were cool, but they didn't get the full hang of them, so they didn't finish the original Final Fantasy 7. But there are it makes me happy that there's these games that all these classics, not even just Final Fantasy, but of course old Mario games and such, that will still carry on generations. And you have young kids and teenagers now who are desperately looking forward to this because it's something that they've either always wanted to get into or they've been excited about it for years and years and years, and they're finally getting it.
Dude, right? I'm playing Crisis Core.
Yeah. That was a good game.
Like I'm straight playing Crisis Core right now because I never got a chance to beat it. I played Crisis Core on PPSSPP emulator, and I used a Microsoft Xbox USB 360 wireless adapter to play. I don't even know what I just said, but I made it so I played on the emulator, plugged it into my big screen TV, and then plugged the Xbox 360 wireless controller up to my computer so I could play Crisis Core on a big screen TV as if it was a console. I went through all that trouble to play that game, got halfway through it, moved, and then never really finished the game. That was like 6 years ago. So now I'm playing it on my Vita, start to finish again. And that's the last like Final Fantasy VII thing I need to I beat Dirge of Cerberus a couple years ago, stuff like that.
Gotcha. No, I always hate it when I get really into a game and then, something happens, like you move or you just kind of lose a little bit of interest or what have you. So you have this giant mammoth of a game that you didn't finish and you just kind of have to live with it. So you can either restart it or kind of continue. Most of the time I kind of just choose to continue and I'll forget some details along the way, but it works out.
Yeah, right? Some people always suggest the most brilliant thing ever. I have the really bad habit of like getting to the final boss and then like right before the final boss just stop playing the game.
Oh my God, you and one of my best friends have that same habit.
Or right before when I get to the final boss, instead of just stop playing the game, I go and do everything else in the game. And then when I'm like almost done doing everything else, I completely forgot the entire story and then just don't go beat the final boss. It's one of those. So my friend was like, oh, just watch like a gameplay recap on YouTube and then stop watching right before the final boss and go beat the final boss. I was like, that's brilliant, but I'm never going to do that.
That is a really good idea. Wow, that's a good pro tip.
Right? Dude, Tales of Destiny on PS1, man. I got so far into that. You know what made me stop playing that game?
What?
I got really far into it. But at one point, it's literally you take a step, random battle. You get out of that battle, you take one step, random battle. And it literally just happened for 2 days straight that I just lost my entire mind, put the game down, and just stopped playing. And I was like, I can't do this. I just can't do this. Because, like, I just want to progress. I've been battling for days. I just want to progress. I just lost it. And then I put the game down for 6 months, completely forgot the whole story. I was like, you know what? I was like, let me pick it up. I'm sure as I play, I'll remember some of the story. I picked that game back up, got into a random battle as soon as I came out of the save point, and I sold the game. I sold it.
I'm sure you got a good amount of money for it, too. That's one of those more valuable games for the PS1.
Yeah, it was expensive.
Yeah. I've never played a Tales game. I hear great things about them, but I've never played a Tales game. I have a few of them, though.
That's the only one I've ever played. The combat system, like the battle system, is like really, really, really cool. Best I could say about it.
Right on. Good to know. Yeah, I don't know which one I would jump into. Maybe if there's anybody listening at this point who's big into Tales, maybe you can recommend a starter one, because I have Tales of Vesperia on the 360, and I think Tales of Symphonia, that's what it is on the GameCube, and those are the two Tales games that I own.
I hear a lot of people love Symphonia. Like, that's like a big fan favorite.
Yeah, my best friend, who he's the one who he has that same habit that you had with like getting to near the end of the game and then just stopping. He told me that, because I remember he is a big Tales fan, and when I told him I picked up Symphonia, he just lit up about it, and he was like, dude, that is maybe the best random game purchase my brother and I ever made. And I asked about it, and he said, yeah, my brother and I, we were traveling one time with the family, and we stopped at some random game shop in Arizona, and we saw Tales of Symphonia. It looked cool. We knew nothing about it, so we bought it and didn't touch it until we had to get back home. And then we just co-opted the thing and played it from start to finish in its entirety. And he just had nothing but good things to say about it. But he was like, yeah, that is like one of the greatest experiences I've had, just randomly picking up a game and jumping into it.
That's really similar how I got into the Persona series. It was
Oh, how do you get into
just
it?
picked the game up at random. Was like, what's this? Picked up Persona 3 at random. I don't know how many years later, but my save file is like 160 hours, and I'm like nowhere near beating the game. I've been trying to beat that game since I got it. Like I don't even know how many years ago.
Oh my god!
But I fell in love with I fell in love with the series, the game, the entire company. Just everything about it was just mind blowingly like awesome to me. It was so fresh, so unique. You know, except for the fact that you can't beat it in 160 hours.
Oh man, I think mine that I got into, which I've played Persona like to their entirety. I've played Persona 4 Golden and Dancing All Night, and then I've delved into Arena, Q, and what was the other one? Persona 5. Unfortunately, I never finished Persona 5. There's so many other Persona games I need to play and finish, but for me it was Golden. Like I'd heard good things about it on the Vita subreddit, and I found it for $20 on Amazon one day, picked it up, and that is maybe the best, one of the best games. I just decided to randomly play it once because I remember I was having an issue with my car battery, and I took it into Sears when they were still a thing, and they were looking into it, and it took like 2 hours because they did not want to give me a new battery. They did not want to, and they did in the end, thankfully. But I had like 2 hours to kill, and I had my Vita with me, and I said, Persona 4, I haven't played this yet, let me fire it up. And I played Persona 4 Golden right there for like 2 hours, and just, I was taken back by everything in there.
Dude, because it's such like, I don't want to say it's like a comic book style, but it's like that very, very like art. It's like very artistic, very bright, very colorful, very unique. There ain't nothing else like it.
It was the, I think to me, one of the things that stuck out, and even one of my friends, he saw me playing it once, and we were both really surprised and impressed by this. The English dub was really solid on there.
Oh, yeah, I'm not. I believe it, but I've never really noticed like a lot of my friends, they watch like animes in Japanese with the subtitles, and then like they like don't really like it when it's in English, and I don't
Sure.
really understand that. But dude, when I play, like, yeah, the English in those games is great. Like it's so awesome. So I don't know what like people are complaining. I guess maybe that's just like for like an anime thing, not necessarily a video game thing. I don't know. But yeah, dude, it's awesome in those games.
It is. It really is. I haven't played anything older than, well, I guess in depth, because I've dabbled. I can say I can dabbled a little bit in like Persona 1 and 2, but not even enough to really say that I really gave them a full try and attention and play through them and such on there. But yeah, no, I know Persona 4, Persona 5, and Q and Arena. I personally loved how the English dub sounded on there.
Yeah, dude, the characters sound badass.
Yeah, they did a good job. Atlas can be trusted with that, except for if you're going to be streaming it. Like, did you ever see the weird implementations they were trying to force onto creators?
No, what are you talking about?
So when Persona 5 came
Oh,
out, Atlas,
yeah. They were saying like don't stream it, and then like they wouldn't, like you couldn't, like with your capture card or something.
yeah, you could not capture the game at all on PS4, but if you used a capture card, they said, hey, because it was very much Atlas US, they were saying, hey, look, we want you all to stream it, but our Japanese counterparts feel a little bit different about it. So we have this list of guidelines, which we can't really say is concrete or not, but they essentially said, you can play up to this point in the game, you can do gameplay as long as it falls under these criteria, and if you get past this part in the game, which let's say it was like the first 5 or 10 hours. Essentially, if you streamed or recorded and showed any part past that, they said, hey, we can't guarantee your safety, but you might or might not get a strike on your channel. So please be careful. But we don't agree with this, us in the US. This is our Japanese counterparts.
You see, I kind of get that though.
Why is that?
So, the Persona series has been going on for 20 years. It's a 20-year long series, and there's only 5 games, like 5 main entries, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 2 got 2, whatever. 5 main entries, and
Sure.
it was a big production for them. And like they always have the most crazy, like convoluted, like buck wild stories. They're really good stories, and they don't want it to be ruined for the people that want to experience it firsthand.
I can understand their approach from that emotion. Like, I totally get that. The problem that people really had with it was the restrictions was really going against fair use on there. Plus, when you're dealing with that as well, too, it's like, well, if you're going to restrict Persona 5, why aren't you restricting Persona 1, 2, 3, and 4? But then again, I'm of the belief none of them should have been restricted. Like, Nintendo's approach to it now with their games is, hey, look, as long as you're not just hitting record, uploading raw gameplay, and putting it out there, as long as you're doing some type of transformative piece, we'll let you do it. It's all good. So if it was just raw, uncut gameplay, if it was only cutscenes, I can understand that. But if it was just people like commentating, doing a let's play and such, that shouldn't have been restricted and touched.
Yeah, because isn't that what hypes the game up to make people go buy it?
Yeah. Not only it's free advertising. It helps with all that, but also it becomes transformative and fair use and such on there. So I think with new games, because there's Persona 5 Royal and there's Persona 5 Scramble, I think they're trying to put those implementations back on with those. But from what I know with the original Persona 5, I don't think they care anymore. I think it's been enough years have passed where you can stream past those, and they just don't care.
Yeah, I feel like that was just right when it came out for like, they just didn't want it to get spoiled for the people that really wanted to play, right?
Of course, yeah.
At least that's why I think they would do all that stuff. I don't know why else. Because, dude, like, I don't know, man. Even with don't you just hate it when like you're like, yo, man, I want to see this movie, and then somebody's like, oh yeah, this character dies at the end. You're like, I hate you.
Thankfully I haven't had too many things spoiled in recent years, but I can totally see where people come from on that.
Me neither. Like, it hasn't really happened to me because I don't really watch too many movies or play too many games. But and if you tell me how a game's going to end by the time that I go and play it, like, I'll probably forget whatever you told me, because I know that's happened before.
Sure. I've had plenty of games spoiled for me before, and typically when I get to that part that was spoiled for me, it still hits me and impacts me, and I still think it's cool. So game spoilers don't typically mess with me. There are some games, though, I kind of question the spoilers on there. Like, for example, I think when Mario Odyssey was coming out, there was a bunch of leaked footage and spoilers and all that stuff, and I'm kind of like, how do you spoil a Mario game?
Yeah, that's so funny that you just said that. That's so funny. That's so funny. Because you can't.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, cool, gameplay mechanics, maps, all that stuff, but, like, it's... And there is a story there, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I don't know, it's not as big as, like, spoiling a big RPG, like spoiling, big important parts in Persona 5, for example. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, that's so funny. You say, how can you really spoil a Mario game? That made me think of another one, but I forgot.
It's all good. Maybe this will jog memory. I don't know, because this is we've been talking about plenty of Sony. We've been talking about all the Mario stuff now here, but the Nintendo PlayStation had sold. I know by the time this comes out, we're a little bit late talking about it, and this isn't a news thing. This is just something I wanted to discuss and kind of talk about. But Paul, did you follow this at all?
Gently.
Okay. So what do you know
I
about
know it
it?
sold for like $250,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good TLDR of it. And for anybody who didn't really follow, this was so way back when. I'm going to kind of butcher the story a little bit, but give a little bit of a TLDR here. The reason why the Sony PlayStation exists is because Sony was initially working with Nintendo to create a PlayStation that was going to be a CD-ROM based add-on for the Super Nintendo and the Super Famicom. And then things didn't go 100% their way. In short, it was mainly Nintendo realized they weren't going to make money off of PlayStation games that were going to be utilizing their characters and properties and such and licenses. So they end up going to Philips, which Philips were the big competitors to Sony in terms of the CD-ROM stuff. That's how we got the awful games like Hotel Mario and the Zelda games on the Philips CDI. And then Sony pretty much had this system done. So they got angry and they kind of just retooled it into the Sony PlayStation. So if Nintendo never did that, we probably wouldn't have the PlayStation to thank here. It kind of came out of that soured relationship. But either way, there were several prototypes, and of this specific one, to my knowledge, it's recorded that there were 200 of these specific Nintendo PlayStations that were made, and all of them are known to be destroyed except for one, which belonged to one of the higher-ups at Sony at the time, named Olaf Olafsson, and he ended up taking it to another company. And then when he left that company, he left it in a box. It eventually got sold to someone else, Terry, and then it was rediscovered several years ago, and it's been toured all over the place. But yeah, this was one of those things. I was memeing on it a little bit because for anybody that doesn't know, apparently Terry was saying he's been up front since the beginning. He said, I'm touring this because, yeah, I want to show people, I want to share it with people, but I want to sell this thing. Like, when it's up for sale, I want to retire off of this. I want some money for this. It was him and his son. And reportedly, he claimed that he was turning down $1 million offers on this when he said it was up for sale. And he was wanting at least $3 million for it. So he turned down private offers, apparently. He took it to auction. It went up to Heritage Auctions. They were the ones who facilitated it. There were several people that bid on it. And in the end, I saw the live stream of this. It went, and this is not the, because total it went for $360,000, but $60,000 of that was the buyer's premium. So the buyer ended up paying $300,000 for it. But it was so painful when I was in the live stream just watching that, and it was like they put it online for a month, and for the first like few days there were a ton of bids on it, tons and tons of bids, and then just kind of stopped, and then it went to live auction at the end, which everyone was expecting that's where the big money was going to come, and then no, there was one bid. It went from 280,000 to 300,000. The person who was auctioning it off seemed like he was in disbelief, but he ended the auction. He said $300,000. It's sold. And that is so much less than so many people were thinking it would be worth.
Dude, I bet you that dude's kicking himself for turning down 1.4 million. But hey, man, that's what greed's gonna get you. Greed's gonna get you.
I mean, he really, it was a big, I can agree it was greed. It was a big gamble either way. He was, of course, expecting, hey, there's a few people offering, so how about everyone offers and everyone can, pool in, decide what they want to do. Like, I see what he was doing. He was expecting to get more money. At the same time, though, if there's only a few people that are offering this, like that money, that doesn't mean there's going to be a ton of people who do that. There's people who could rethink their decisions as well on there and retract their bids, which I know some people did do that because it was higher up and then it ended up going back down before it was put on the show floor there. But another thing I had thought of as well, and I know Pat and Ian on the CU podcast, they mentioned this, I'm glad they did, but I was even thinking of this, is that right when this was selling, that's when there was, right now the economy's not in the best shape, and that's when economic stuff was going on. So I'm sure there might have even been some people who had big money ready to go, and they looked at it, and they looked at the numbers, they looked at what was happening, and they said, you know what? It is not smart for me to spend $500,000 or $750,000 or $1 million on this thing. I think I'm just going to save my money.
Yep. Agreed. Didn't like the owner of Oculus, didn't he bid on it? Wasn't he one?
Yes, he had. Yeah, I want to say he had the highest bid. I think he took it up to 360,000, and he came out and said, "Hey guys, I'm gonna preserve this thing. I'm gonna get all this stuff set up. That's me bidding on it. Nobody else try a bid on it. If you try and bid on it, I'll outbid you." But like I said, when it went up for auction for everybody, the show floor and such, the auction floor, it was at 280. So the dude had to retract his bids then. I guess he decided at one point that, no, I'm not going to spend $360,000 on this. Yeah. My other theory I have, Paul, did you ever see the Nintendo PlayStation book that they were trying to get kickstarted?
No.
Okay, so the cool thing about this is it's been fully documented. Like, Ben Heck has opened it up. He's taken tons of photos.
Yeah, right?
He's prepared it. Yeah, they took it to China. It comes with a Super Famicom cartridge, which has the BIOS on there, like the Super CD BIOS. The BIOS has been dumped. Everything's this thing is as preserved and restored as it can be, which is excellent news. And most of that, if not all of it, is public information. But at one point, they ended up creating a book, which looked really cool. Like, it was a book all about the Nintendo PlayStation, tons of beautiful photos, all that stuff. And they were kickstarting it. And the Kickstarter failed because obviously it didn't make enough money to meet the minimum threshold on there. So this thing was touted all these places, like all over the world, all over the nation. And plenty of people, like everybody, would want to see it. But not a lot of people would want to buy it. And then the book went up on Kickstarter. And it didn't make enough money to even, do the minimum successful Kickstarter project on there. And then when this ended up happening, they were saying this is worth at least $1 million. It's worth at least $3 million. No, right now, 2020, the current moment in time, the market says this is worth $300,000. And that isn't a small amount of money. It's a great sum of money to just suddenly have off something you barely paid anything for. But I think the big money and a lot of just the purchase power was never there to begin with. When you're not seeing really anywhere close to seven figures when the actual device sells, but also when you can't successfully kickstart a book about this elusive device.
Ooh, ouch. But so right. You're so right. Yo, I would love to see pictures of that. Man, the best thing about that was that you mentioned Ben Heck, getting to take it apart and him figuring it out. I love that dude. That dude's great.
Oh, he's great.
He really is. But man, why wouldn't somebody I got a buddy who's literally making VMU shells from scratch. He's resin casting VMU shells by taking an existing VMU shell, making a mold out of it, out of silicone, and then pouring different types of resins. And he's perfected all these different types of resins to get it to feel the same as an original VMU, be the same color. He's doing the same thing with NES controllers and a bunch of different stuff. Why couldn't somebody do that with this? Why couldn't we clone this thing?
I do have one question on that. Is that Rourke that you're talking about? Okay, I know who you're talking about then. Cool, shout out to Rourke.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right?
Yeah, but no, in terms of cloning it, we have the BIOS, we have the photos and such on there. We don't have any casts, unfortunately, of it. I think, first of all, you would be running into a copyright issue just because, you'd be circulating the BIOS and such off of there and redistributing it for sale. So legally, that wouldn't really be the best because, surprisingly, both companies have been really cool about it. This is, even though it's the Nintendo PlayStation, this is mostly Sony's deal. And neither of them have really commented about it. Neither of them have tried to stop sales. Neither of them have sent legal paperwork to Terry, from what I know. So both companies have kind of just turned a blind eye to all this and been really cool. But if there's clones of this that start going out, that's where there's going to be more of an issue, especially because, I mean, Family clones and Super Family clones are nothing new by any means, but this is a full working Super Famicom with a CD-ROM add-on built in. So you're directly, cloning Nintendo hardware and Sony hardware and code at that point. And then I think even, several of the chips and such that are on there, I don't know if the code that was burned on those chips and such has been dumped, for the public.
Like, right, imagine if you could just buy one of these things, and imagine if indie developers were developing games for it. It's essentially Super Nintendo, but the disc-based games, I don't know.
So here's the thing, your dream actually came true. That actually happened.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so at one point the first big trip this thing took is they took it to China. And shortly after it was x-rayed and checked out and everything in China, the BIOS leaked out online, to no surprise, but homebrew developers ended up taking this, and they were then able to develop Nintendo PlayStation CD-ROM games, and they could only emulate them because, there's only one of these in the world. But if you see Ben Heck's full teardown and restoration and repair of this, at the end, once it's all up and running, he actually burns off some of those homebrew games and for the first time ever plays Nintendo PlayStation games on a Nintendo PlayStation.
I have nothing to say. My mind is blown.
Dude, the homebrew community is a beautiful thing at times.
Man, I would love that, man. Even just like a shell. I don't know. I feel... if this dude wanted to make some money off this, I feel I'm sure he probably made a lot of money off of it. He went to touring all over the world for it. Actually, probably had to spend a lot of money to get this thing out there. But it's cool.
That's actually the... Yeah, I was going to say, that's actually the thing. This was a little bit of a sticking point. Apparently, when they interviewed Terry, he said that he's lost a bunch of money on there. And he said something like, yeah, after all the fees and taxes and splitting this 50-50 with my son, I'm going to have enough money to pay off my debts, but that's it. I'm not retiring off of, what I made off the sale. But yeah, from what I know, I don't think there would have been any paid appearances of this. I really don't think so. Because typically event organizers, when they invite these people, they'll pay for your flight, they'll pay for your lodging, they might give you a food,
free
daily
board,
stipend
basically.
or something. Exactly, yeah, but it's with someone like Terry with the Nintendo PlayStation, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, but I really don't think they're going to, pay thousands of dollars for him and his console to have a specific appearance. They'll pay for all of his, his travel, his lodging, his food, but they wouldn't do a paid appearance, I would think.
Yeah, convention centers are very expensive to rent out.
Yes, they are.
Depending on the venue, it could be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 per 4 hours.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah, and that depends on the size. And the location as well. And I'm sure they could even be, some different ones could be a little bit more, or some could be a little bit less. But that's usually how they charge.
Yeah, I haven't been to unfortunately, any real big gaming convention. So, and then at that point, I don't really know the convention owners, so I don't know the, all the monetary stuff behind that. But I have no doubt that they're real expensive.
I mean, you could pay for... if you're doing it in succession, like a convention that's been going on for a couple of years, typically the profits that they have from the previous year they put into it towards the next year, and then also they get to end up eventually saving money on advertising, because after it's a kind of established and people know about it and know of its existence, it's just sort of just reminding people.
Agreed. Yeah, there's stuff I know, Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Too Many Games. These are expos that they're just known all over the place. And of course, Comic-Con, you don't have to advertise for Comic-Con. You just announce that it's happening. Yeah.
So you eventually start saving on it. But yeah, no, they're expensive. So for them to just be yeah, I want this I want this thing to be there. I have to pay money for it.
Yeah. And I think, I don't even know, because I'm not an accountant, I'm not a finance person, I don't know the details of this, but I would think that even with flying guests out and accommodating them and giving them a food stipend and such, I'm sure when it comes down to the taxes and such, they're able to expense a lot of that to an extent and say, yeah, this is a guest, they had to come out here, we paid for their travel, so this is a valid business expense to some extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
I like dev kit style stuff. I always want to like mess around with like a dev kit or have like have a dev kit be like my daily driver of like a game system. You know?
You've seen those PS2 tool
That's
dev
exactly
kits, right?
what I'm thinking about when I'm saying
Yeah,
this.
a giant ass PS2 looking PC. I love those.
Dude, my buddy has one, and I got to see one in real life. It's like the size of it's a computer tower. They're huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, hey, what if I wanted a computer that looked like a PS2? And that's what it is. It's beautiful.
Yo, so this is making me think of those PS5 dev kits pictures that got leaked, which is then making me think about, you see that Xbox Series X released all the specs for like their stuff, and like there's already people like taking it apart. Like on YouTube today, I think I saw like 3 notifications for like Xbox Series X. I don't even know what it's called, but the new one.
Series X, yeah. Yeah, I will say the thing that annoys me about that is I don't like the form factor of the retail Series X, the one that looks like a little mini fridge. I don't like that. I don't like how it looks. I'm not crazy about that. But in those videos, I've just seen screenshots of them. I haven't seen any video to an extent yet. In those videos, however, because there's these influencers and such that are being invited to Microsoft's campus to check these out, you can actually see the dev kits of the Series X. And the dev kits look like upgraded Scorpio dev kits. So that confirms 2 things to me. One of them is that the Series X is just a super insanely ultra powerful Xbox One, which I think that's what these systems need to go for. Like, you already have everything established, you bring everything forward thanks to backwards compatibility, and then any next gen 9th generation stuff will just exclusively work on that more powerful hardware. So that confirms that for me. The other thing it confirms is that they didn't have to go with the mini fridge design. They could have just gone with the same form factor or the same design shape as a Scorpio, like a Xbox One X. And I would love that. Like, I like the Xbox One X. I like how it looks. I like how it fits in my entertainment center. I don't like how the Series X retail is going to be. So that's actually one of those few systems I'd be like, no, I would love, if there was an option to have the dev kit shell, essentially, with a retail system that I could buy, I would get that version of it because I like that form factor more because of the space and because it's not an awkward shape.
Yeah, but that awkward shape stands out and gets people's attention because it's out of the norm. So maybe it'll increase sales.
It's not. That is not going to stand out in my house. I'm putting that shit behind my TV when I get the Series X at one point.
I was trying to be like, no, it's gonna help. It's gonna help. You were just like, no.
Yeah, no. And then we don't know what the hell the PS5 looks like, but yeah, we'll see.
I hope to God it doesn't look like those dev kits.
It won't. Sony has so Microsoft has a history of their dev kits will, aside from like the Power Mac G5 and the Alpha Xbox dev kits, their dev kits typically look like slightly beefier retail models, which is fine. But Sony always has a history of their dev kits are fucking huge, and their test kits are just the same form factor as a retail system, except it says test somewhere.
Yep. I've seen that on the PS2, the PS3, where it'll say test. I've seen them in the box and the debugging stations. The debugging units look just like the regular system. But yeah, their dev kit's always some monstrosity that's absolutely ridiculous. So
yeah, which I find that to be beautiful. I'm like, and also it's dev hardware, so it doesn't really matter at that point. It's like, it doesn't matter if this is big and heavy and ugly. You're developing stuff on it.
Yeah, that's very true. So I hope to God that's the depth. Sony has been incredibly quiet about this whole thing. So when Microsoft just came out today and was like, Microsoft's probably like, you know what? We know Sony's been quiet. We know you all have questions. Boom! Here's everything we got. So I was like, that's a power move by Xbox. But maybe Sony, maybe that's exactly what Sony wanted Xbox to do. Maybe that's why they were quiet. Let's have Xbox spill their beans first, and then you know what I mean? Maybe that was Sony's combat. Do you think these companies are playing a marketing game of chess with one another, or do you think our speculation turns it into a game of chess?
I think they're probably playing chess with one another. I know the speculation is more fun to think of, but I think they're playing chess with one another. Kind of like with how, kind of going back to this, how Sony completely obliterated the Xbox One launch with the PS4. And then, did you ever see the tutorial they released on how to share games on the PS4?
No.
Oh, dude, it's one of the greatest videos. So it's official from Sony. It came out right after the announcement of the PS4, and it was how to share used games, because that was the big thing with the Xbox One. And it's like this beautiful intro and everything, and it's just two of the higher ups, and one of them passes a PS4 disc to the other, and they both look at the camera and say, thanks, and that's it. And just like a little 39-second clip like that just completely obliterates everything.
That's so... wow.
Sony had a whole lot of fun marketing the PS4 back in 2013, I can say that. But I will agree with you, they've been suspiciously quiet. However, to Microsoft's credit, which I think this is good, I really like this. They fucked up so hard launching the Xbox One and then changing over from Don Mattrick to Phil Spencer. From Phil Spencer. Phil's the new guy. Yeah, from Don Mattrick to Phil Spencer, and he's really been trying to fight for the Xbox One and get it out there, and trying to do a lot of good for these owners and prospective owners for this system and the next gen system and such. I think they fucked up so badly from the initial rollout of it and the initial announcement that their thing since mainly the Scorpio, the 1X, since that was announced, was I think they just wanted to be as transparent as possible. Because like the 1X, for example, like a year and a half before the system came out, they're like, hey, this is how the system looks. This is what developers are saying about it. This is the hardware. These are all the specs. And this is when it's coming out. And I think at this point, Microsoft is just saying like, we need to be as transparent as possible to be like, look, we are trying to make this the best experience for you all. Please critique us and let us know if there's something we're doing wrong here.
Kind of like learning from their mistakes and trying to improve.
Yeah. Oh, you cut out there, but you were saying learn from their mistakes.
Oh yeah, like learn from their mistakes and try to improve.
Yeah,
I respect that.
Yeah. I do too. That's all.
I know you've taken apart every Xbox, right?
I would.
Slim.
I've partially taken apart
X.
a 1X. I've fully taken apart a 1 before. Yeah, those are the one I'm just not really into. But the other systems, yeah, sure.
So you notice like the similarities between the systems throughout their entire line of generations, from the OG Xbox all the way up. Like you see and feel the similarities, right?
I would say so. Yeah, there's some similarities.
And then
there.
you notice like all the little improvements that they do to the system. First, like, dude, I'll never forget like when the Xbox, when I first took apart an Xbox One, I was like, this is the biggest heatsink I've ever seen in a gaming system. Microsoft was like, yeah, man. All right, so that red ring, like, never again. Like, make it the biggest heatsink we got. So it's just like interesting and funny to see things like that. Sony, same thing. If you take apart like one of those PS3 Fats versus like a PS3 Slim, complete and utter redesign of the entire system. Like it's not how like a complete redesign. And if you take apart a PS4, it's a lot similar to the PS3 Slim. not a lot similar, but you can see more similarities. It's not like a brand new system. It's like they kind of went off that because after, the mistakes they made with the PS3 Fat, where unfortunately, Xbox mopped the floor with Sony that generation, Sony had to make some improvements.
Until at the very end. At the very end, Sony did come back. So, like, just by a slight hair, the PS3 did sell better in the end than the 360.
Yeah, isn't it like by it's like 300,000 more units or something?
It's something like it's within 1 million, yeah. And at the very end, they caught up. But yeah, again, it's like, well, I can't really think of that many people that had 5 PS3s.
I really hated the super slim design, but
you're talking about I got one of them next to me right here. You're talking about the one that is just like ugly looking and it slides open and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, I fucking hate the super slim. Yeah. Even though as I said, I have it right here. And it's lightweight and I use it for like my PS3 hidden stuff. So in that capacity, it works. But I hate the form factor of this thing.
And I don't know. I just think it's really interesting to look at the revisions of different gaming systems throughout their history, see how they improve things, see where they change. Xbox, I find the most similarities within all of the Xbox systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when you're talking about the Xbox One, it wasn't so much the heatsink that really was big for me, even though it is physically big there. It's the system itself, and I know it's memed on quite a bit, but I was a supporter of this at least from the beginning. Like, the original Xbox, it's just a custom PC built into a shell, essentially. And when you take that apart, you can easily see that. Then the 360, of course, they revised it and all that stuff, but they were trying to pack as much stuff as they could in the fat form factor. And then it's funny because the Xbox, this is something even during that generation I had said, and other friends, we were all talking about this. We said, if they made the 360 bigger, if they made the 360 as big as a desktop PC, it probably wouldn't have had many hardware fault issues, many general hardware failures. But nobody would have really wanted to buy it because it'd be fucking huge. So they wanted to compress it down and pack as much as they could into that smaller form factor. The Xbox One, though, they said, absolutely not. We did this shit 7 or 8 years ago. We really fucked up here because if you, just think about it. When you open up your Xbox One, like the original VCR one, when you open it up, there's a ton of dead space in there because they wanted that thing to breathe. They didn't want to compress a damn thing in that system because they did not want to repeat.
Yep.
Yeah, which I can value that. Coming off the 360, they're like, we can't fuck this up. And to their credit, the Xbox One, I would say, the original one, although it is memed on for being a VCR and such, it's a pretty trusty system.
Dude, I wish I never released this video, but it was an Xbox One. It was the Forza edition. It was like a blue one. I got it for dumb cheap because it just wouldn't work. And I wanted to play Killer Instinct, the new one. I love Killer Instinct. I wanted to play it. So I bought this cheap Xbox that was broken. And I went to plug it on or whatever. And then it just didn't work. And then I was like, you know what? I don't have time to fix it right now. Let me put it down. And then I revisited in a couple months. I plugged it back in to see what's not working to try to diagnose it, and it just worked. And I was like, oh my god, nice. I just got an Xbox for $50 or whatever. This is awesome. And then it died on me. I was like, okay, I probably should have just opened it up. I was like, let me open this thing up. And I think I actually did I did a video about how to open the Xbox One X, but not this one. It was a different one. And so I opened this one, dude. I don't know. Maybe I posted on Instagram a picture of it. It was like black tar on the motherboard.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, and my joke. I don't know. I'm sure you have a joke when you open consoles and they're dirty, but mine is Coca-Cola and Cheetos. Somebody just ate Cheetos over this game system and just poured Coca-Cola on it. You know what I mean?
I'm just thinking of when you were saying we might have a joke on that. This one we didn't even have to open, so in high school, I worked at a game shop for a few years, and I did not see this system, but we had one friend of the store who was just a filthy individual, and he traded in his Xbox 360, the Pro unit, the fat white one. You know what I'm talking about? Just like visualize it. Apparently, the cables for it, because we bought it, but the cables were so nasty that they threw away the cables in the power supply. And my manager insists he thought that it was an Elite model.
Oh my god.
Yeah, one of the black systems, and I never saw the system, but I believe he only exaggerated maybe like a little bit on there based on this guy.
Oh my god. I can only imagine. Dude, I did a job of fixing 50 Xbox 360 controllers. Yo, some of those were the worst I ever seen. But keep in mind, like, that was online gaming at its peak for console gaming. That was it. Like, everybody was playing that online. Call of Duty was huge. Or I don't even know if it's Call of Duty, but like online shooters, the one that had the zombies. Those games are huge.
Yeah.
So every controller was just Coca-Cola and Cheetos on the inside.
And nobody was washing their damn hands.
Not at all. But that Xbox One, man, it was so gross. It was literally black tar. And basically, I couldn't figure out for the video. I didn't know what to do to make the video, because basically it was like all I did was clean it and it worked. I don't know how or why cleaning this black tar off the motherboard made the system work better, and I don't know what can I turn that video into? The importance of cleaning your consoles occasionally, the importance of don't spill Coca-Cola on your game systems and do nothing about it and then sell it to me for cheap 20 years later. I don't know,
Yeah, I think you have a few good video ideas there. If you still have the raw footage for that, it might be worth turning into some. That sounds really entertaining.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I'll do it.
Yeah. Fuck it, why not? You did all the work already.
I need to add some Xbox content to my channel. I have all of 2 Xbox videos, or maybe 3 or 4 out of like an entire channel,
Yeah. Nothing wrong with tossing some more stuff in the mix.
All right.
Yeah. So this is I guess for our last topic here, I always either talk about this myself, or if I have a guest on, I always ask this before we outro out. But Paul, what games have you been playing right now that you want to talk about? Annie, I guess either you want to talk about more that you haven't talked about.
So the first thing I want to mention before I answer this question is I want to say that between starting a business about selling like mod chips and like t-shirts and like video game related stuff and like a YouTube channel about modding, by doing those 2 things, basically playing video games went out the window.
Sure. It's so funny how that works.
Yeah. And I did a live stream for like a year and a half every Tuesday where I beat every single Resident Evil game because I'd never played any of them before. But other than that, I really didn't play games for like the past like 3-4 years. And I shut my business down, completely got rid of my website, stopped modding for people, and just turned it into just YouTube. And only recently have I been able to start playing games again, like within the past like 4, 5, 6 months.
Sure.
And it's amazing. I beat Dragon's Crown, 100%ed it, and then I beat Parasite Eve 2, and
nice.
And now I'm playing Crisis Core, and it's amazing. Oh, I beat Shattered Memories Silent Hill.
That was the kind of weird remake, but not remake of the first one, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're talking
where
about.
like if you played it on the Wii, you like the flashlight in Silent Hill was like the Wiimote.
Yes.
So my buddy, I have a Wii. I have the component cables to like play it like really nice and like all that jazz. He gave me the game, and then he was like, "Here, I want you to play this and experience it in the best possible quality." So what I did was when I got my Vita, I played the PSP version and beat it on my Vita, which is kind of watered down from the Wii experience, but I don't know, it was great.
Right on.
So that's basically it. I just beat Parasite Eve 2. Phenomenally awesome game. It was so sick. Such a sick game. Final boss was really, really hard. Way harder than the rest of the game. Game wasn't even that hard. You get to the final boss, and I was like, damn. It took me like a week to beat it. And then and I moved on to Crisis Core. And that's it. That's what I've been playing. What about you?
Right on. That's real cool to hear. I personally liked Parasite Eve 2 more than the first one.
Me too,
so.
kinda.
Yeah, that's I still haven't played. Have you played the Third Birthday? I still haven't played. I own it, but I have not played that yet.
I for some reason I love that game. I've tried to play it so many times, and basically every single time I tried to play it, something happened where I could never play it. And this is the most. I just transferred it to my Vita from my PS TV, because. Oh, which is such a great thing. If you have a hacked PS TV and a hacked Vita, you could just swap save files back and forth and play it on the TV. Oh, yeah. I love it. But this game is from actually a year ago, and I'm just going to pick up the save file and just continue it.
Right on.
But it's kind of a trash game, but it's kind of awesome at the same time. It's nowhere near as good as Parasite Eve 1 or 2. It's very nothing much like them. Except for it's kind of in the same universe, sort of ish, not really. It's way exaggerated. You ever see a movie series where they just keep making movies and then they get to number 7 and it's just so ridiculous it's not even good anymore?
Yeah, I know. That was Terminator 3 for me.
Tomb Raider 3?
No, Terminator.
Oh, 3. Yeah.
At times, it felt like an episode of Family Guy, where it's all right, hey, we're being chased, and oh, great, there's a giant fucking plane that crashed into this Terminator.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Third Birthday is, but as a standalone game, if you just delete Parasite Eve from your mind, I like it. I think it's a lot of fun, especially playing it on a Vita or the PS TV, so you can bind, so you can use dual analog sticks.
Sure.
But yeah, I like it. I have fun with it, even though I never beat it, but I'm going to.
Right on. Yeah, I need to fire that up at one point, but I need to play through Parasite Eve 1 and 2 first before I do that. Give them fair, full playthrough, start to finish.
Dude, it's so cool. It's like survival horror, but RPG-y. It's easy survival horror, basically.
Yeah. Did you hear about what one of the developers behind Final Fantasy VII Remake said about that?
Yo, it would be a waste to not remake those games.
Yes, I hope that is a big hint of what might be to come.
Dude, when they did the first they threw the main character from Parasite Eve into one of the a Final Fantasy VII remake poster or something like that. I don't know. Or something like that. That was a while ago as a little hint. I hope so.
Yeah, we'll see. I'd love to see more Parasite Eve come out at one point, but we just have to wait and see.
What you been playing?
So, let's see. I've pretty much only been playing on Switch for the most part, but I do have a few things here. I ended up randomly picking up Doom because I'm not super excited about Doom Eternal coming out. Not to say anything bad about it, it's just that I'm not picking it up here anytime soon. But because of Doom Eternal coming out, on the eShop, they were selling Doom 1 and 2 for $1.50 and Doom 3 for $3. So I bought all of those for $5 in total. And I've been playing through the first Doom, and it's so damn fun. I've never gotten this far in it. I've beaten some of the campaigns on here, but it's really fun. I very much enjoyed that. I end up finishing up Steins Gate Elite, which have you heard of or watched or played Steins Gate before?
Never heard of it.
So it's a visual novel, traditional visual novel and such that people would think of, and it started out on the Xbox 360 of all things, which surprised me, but it was Japan only, and of course, since it's a visual novel, it was only in Japanese. And then from the visual novel, they made an anime, and then recently they made Steins Gate Elite, which is the visual novel with scenes from the anime as opposed to traditional visual novel art style, which I've liked because it's a lot more visual. There's stuff moving on screen. It's easier for the eyes, so to speak. So I finished that, absolutely loved it. And then the other game I finished here pretty recently, and I didn't talk about this one in the last episode, so I'll talk about it here. Have you ever heard of Gone Home?
Mm-mm.
So this one of those games I wanted. I saw it on my radar for a bit. I picked up a physical copy of it months ago on Switch and did not touch it. So I saw it on sale at one point, and it was like $7.50 or so digitally. And for whatever reason, that prompted me to finally try it out. So I didn't rebuy it, but I did take my physical cart, I popped it in, and I don't want to say that much about it because it is pretty much all story. But it was great. I want to play through it again just so I know what's going to happen and I can kind of reset my mind, because I guess I'll put it like this. I went into it like the leading, the startup, the atmosphere, it feels like a survival horror game. So I spent half of the game freaked out and anxious thinking that I was going to get attacked or something, and that's not what it is, even though it feels like a survival horror game. So that's why I kind of want to go in there with a reset expectation. But it's one of those games, it is best to play it blind. Just the least you know about it, the better. Not everyone's going to like it. It's a short game. You can finish. I finished it in like 2 hours or so. So you can, and I recommend finishing it in one sitting if you can. I paused for like 5 minutes just to run to the bathroom and get a drink. But aside from that, I finished it just the first night I picked it up. Absolutely loved it. Just one of those games that I've had sitting on the shelf. I didn't know all too much about it, and it completely surprised me when I fired it up.
I love that. I like that. That's great to hear. Like, that was really good to hear.
Yeah.
Like, I really like the way that sounds. I Google imaged it while you were telling me about it. I couldn't help it. You got me intrigued.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah. Dude, if you can find it for a decent price, I'd recommend picking it up and give it a shot. Again, it's like a 2-3 hour game, so you either like it or you don't like it, but it doesn't take that long to finish.
It gave me a it gave me like a PT vibe.
I would say so. PT, I mean, you're getting attacked. It's definitely scary and such on there.
But like
this is not like
just
PT.
kind of like obscure angles of like the interior of a house.
Yes. Yep.
Is like what made me think of like PT.
That makes sense. Yeah, the hallway.
Is it only on Switch?
Yeah, and then no, it's on Switch, it's on PC. I believe it's on PS4 and Xbox One.
Oh, dope.
But it's at minimum on PC as well, and you don't really need a powerful PC to run it, so you should be all good.
No dope.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last game, I did not finish this, I'm playing through it right now, is AI the Somnium Files. And this is another game I'd picked up, I think, shortly after it launched, and it seemed real interesting. I don't want to spoil all too much about it, but essentially you are a detective of sorts working for the police department, and you're handling things your own way. And it deals with AI, it deals with some other stuff, and it's definitely like a mystery visual novel type thing, except a lot more interactive than others. So it's kind of like it's almost like for interactivity, kind of on the same level as a Telltale game, except there's a lot more, a lot more detail that you can pick up and such. It's fantastic so far. I like the art style, I like the music, I like the characters on there. I'm only like 2 hours in, but it's one of those games that kind of a bit of a sleeper hit. It came out, it really didn't get that much attention, but everyone who's played it has said very high praise about it.
Art style's dope. I Google imaged it.
Yeah.
Did it.
Sometimes, dude, that's what I do. I'll Google image things and be like, do I like this? Do I not like it? Okay, let's see.
No, the art style definitely looks dope on that one.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Interesting.
So, yeah, if it's something that either you or anybody else listening might be interested in, show some interest, I definitely recommend playing it so far. It's been really great. Yeah. So I guess on here, that's pretty much all I had for this. So, Paul, to outro you out here, where can people find you online?
Oh, just type retro gaming arts into YouTube, into Instagram, into Facebook, which I don't ever really use, or Twitter. You could type retro gaming arts into Twitter. I don't really use that one much either. Mainly YouTube, just type retro gaming arts.
Right on. And on the video upload here on YouTube, I'll have your I can put up like your Instagram and your YouTube in the description there, because I know you're really active on Instagram. I know you like Instagram.
So basically, I'm just trying to switch everybody over from, like I said, I shut my business down, and I was having like a lot of like problems where like basically the people that wanted to connect with me on Facebook it was all about my business. Like, like, hey, can I send you a console to mod? And I didn't really, it was so much of that like people from like YouTube who like had a question about like, they're doing a mod and they like had a question about it. Like I couldn't even like get any of their messages on, because it was all just, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted to like create a place or like go to a place where I could like be able to, I don't know, help or answer questions like that. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I don't know, to me, I always see like your photos and videos pop up on mine. It looks like you have a lot of fun on there showing off what you work on.
Yeah, and also I think like a little behind the scenes of like the YouTube channel too. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of a preview, but either way, yeah, I'll put those down. So again, Paul, thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate you, and this definitely been a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, of course. Like, don't thank me. Thank you. Like, this was awesome. I get to just chill and talk to you for like a while about like whatever video game randomness. Like, dude, it's awesome. Like, I had a blast. You kidding me? Thank you.
Yeah. That's why I like doing this. I like having a blast with it.
I appreciate it very much. So.
Yeah. It's all good, man. One last thing I have from you. Typically, for anybody who's made it to the end, I always like to do a keyword, and if I have a guest, I toss it over to them. So, Paul, if there's some, what keyword should someone use? So, if they use it in their comment, we will know that they made it to the end of this podcast.
I love this idea. I love this idea. I love this idea. What was the guy's name when we were talking about the PSP unpacking file that I found? And I should
Dark Alex.
Dark Alex. Is that a good one, or could they just randomly say when you said it earlier, be like Dark Alex? Who's gonna do that though? Who's gonna know that would be the keyword?
I think some people might do that, but it's gonna be pretty slim. No, I think that's a good one. All right, so yeah, we'll go with that. So I guess technically now it'd be one word because his username was all one, so it's dark_Alex. If you use that in the comments on the YouTube upload, we will know that you made it to the end of this, and we'll be looking out for that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. That was so brilliant. You're so awesome.
Well, perfect. We're bringing Dark Alex back for this, man. Yeah. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you for listening and watching, everyone, and until next time.